just picking this up, two narrow lines up, and we were trying to look for a further source based on last week. Daladom and base, two narrow lines, Omer Shlokish, Goma me Edim Zomamim. So he is of the opinion, Rabbi Yehuda, that even a negative precept, where there's no activity, lav she'ein bo ma'isa, nevertheless you can still get malchus. Daf daled omid base, two narrow lines up. Omer Shlokish Goma. He learns this principle from Edim Zomamim. Why? Edim Zomamim, remember the case we had before on the Mishnah, for example. Rashi mentions, remember, if Edim come forward and say such an individual should go to Ianidachas because we were in the court when it was decided he'd killed accidentally, yeah? Then what happens to this? You can't, and they're found to be Edim Zomamim, then those witnesses, Edim Zomamim, have received Malchus. That was one of the examples we had in the Mishnah. Yeah. So what do you see from there? Omer Shlokish Goma mi Edim Zomamim. Very interesting. Ma Edim Zomamim lav she'ein bo ma'aseh. They don't do, and the witnesses don't actually do something. They speak. Speech is not really an action as such, but nevertheless, a lav she'ein bo ma'aseh, and they get malchus. So we see there an example of a lav she'ein bo ma'aseh, but they could still get malchus for it. Says the Gemara, af kol lav she'ein bo ma'aseh loikin olav. From that, we have the Torah doesn't tell us every detail, otherwise the Torah will be so much larger. But we have a principle, and if I can call upon you here, Peter, to move to, this time we're going to go to the Siddur, if we can. So if you can go to Tanakh, liturgy, I suppose, sounds like right to me. Go for liturgy. And go for Siddur Ashkenaz, for most of us, I suppose. Let's go to weekday Shacharit. Let's go to preparatory prayers, the first one. Go for, scroll down, bit more. Go to Korbanot, right at the end. Kiyot, scroll down further. That I want the Brisa of Rabbi Yishmael. Here we are. Oh, well done there. This is right before the Kaddish. Rabbi Yishmael Omer Bishlosh Esrei Midos, through 13 methods or 13 rules, the Torah is expounded. The Torah is expounded through 13 methods. One of them is a Kal V'chomer. We're familiar with that. Remember, if you have a lenient law, then you learn something from it. A Kal V'chomer. Then you've got Gezerah Shava is number 2. Remember, that's where you have a similar word. We've had many examples like that, a Gezerah Shava, a bit like anchoring two words together. And we say if a rule applies here, it applies there. Number 3 is what we want. Mi binyan of mikosuv echod, umi binyan of mishanei kasuvim. I like do you see that on top of the shin? That 3 dots on top of the shin. Very nice of them. They're signifying that the shavor underneath is sounded. Just more of a grammatical point here. So it's umi binyan of mishanei kasuvim. It's not mishnei, it's mishanei. So very nice of them. They put on top those 3 dots to signify that can you see the shavor underneath? It's sounded. There are 2 types of shvar. There's a shvar which is sounded, shvar which isn't. This one actually is mishanei chesuvim. So thank you very much. But I didn't want to talk about the grammar. I wanted to talk about the rule, which is a principle. He translates it here. derived from.
Alter the meaning? Does that alter the meaning whether you pronounce the shin or not?
It can do. In this case, yes, it would. Mishneh is from the word Mishnah.
Yeah.
So there's a word Mishnah, as we know, and it's not the. You see that mem is a prefix before the shanei. The word is shanei, to. Mishneh, from to. If you'd say Mishneh, it's the word Mishnah. Do you with me? So Mishneh means the Mishnah of, and it doesn't nothing to do with Mishnah. We're not learning Mishnayos here. What this tells me, it's from to. So there's a word Shanei. If you put the mem in front, it becomes from to, and it's different from the word Mishnah or Mishneh, which would be from the word talking about a Mishnah. And that's not what we're talking about here. You with me? So you're right. Many instances, it doesn't make a difference. Like the next line, for example, whether you said miklal ufrat or mikalol ufrat, wouldn't make a difference in meaning. But it can make a difference in meaning. Even though it doesn't make a difference in meaning, one is the correct pronunciation and one is the incorrect pronunciation. That is, I'm pleased you asked, because actually that one does make a difference. Mishneh means from to. Mishneh means the Mishnah of. We're not talking about Mishnayos here. You with me? But the rule is quite straightforward. Number 3, worth remembering. Mi binyan of. Binyan means the building up, like a father building up. Mi kosuv echod, from one posuk. That's all we need from actually Peter. Or mi binyan of. Don't turn off yet. Or mi binyan of, or building up, like a building, a fatherly building, from 2 psukim. And what that means is what we're looking at now, where the Torah sometimes tells us a rule somewhere, and from that we learn elsewhere, unless you say that that first case is exceptional in some way. So you can do that with 2 psukim or 1 posuk. And we're actually going to have both of those right now. So back, Peter, thank you very much indeed. Benjamin, hello there. So let's go back to our Gemara, Daf Daled Amud Beis, and we had the first wide line of Gemara. The Rosh Lakish is suggesting, under that rule number 3 of Rabbi Yishmael, mi binyan of, in other words, you're building, really building a fatherly building, if you like. So you've got a principle somewhere. You can learn that principle elsewhere, unless you tell me that from that first case, it's got some exceptional rule about it, which means you can't learn elsewhere. Otherwise, there's a principle, as I say, mi binyan of. So it's number 3, Gezerah Shav, we saw Kal V'chomer. This is mi binyan of. So what Rosh Lakish is saying is the following. We've got a rule in Eidim Zomimim, and as we know, Eidim Zomimim, one of the examples, they can get Malchus. What action have they done? They've done no action. They haven't eaten something. They haven't hit anybody. They haven't caused any damage. But they haven't eaten something which is not kosher. What have they done? They've spoken in court. Now, as we've said, that's really not considered an action. But nevertheless, Eidim Zomimim get Malchus. So if that happens over there, what Rabbi Yehuda is learning, a general principle, unless you can say there's something exceptional, we're going to say, first wide line of Gemara, Af kol lav she'ein bo ma'isa. Any negative, even if there's no action, because Eidim Zomimim is no action, loikin olov. So there can be other examples where you can also get Malchus, where there is no action, something negative. Okay, hold on a minute. Continue the Gemara. And the Gemara says just 1 minute. But Eidim Zomimim is exceptional. Says the Gemara, Mala Eidim Zomimim, and this is a Gemara in Ksubas, a long piece there, we won't go into, but let's take the Gemara's word for it. Eidim Zomimim doesn't need a warning. Now, normally, for Averis, there is a warning and then a punishment. There's normally a warning. Don't do an activity. Otherwise, one might have thought, well, it's, I wouldn't say optional. You've got to be told, don't do something. That's called a warning. So people should warn this individual. So before an activity takes place, typical example, let's say, sadly, murder. For the murderer to be killed subsequently, he would have to be warned. Yeah, that means a warning given to the murderer, potential murderer, saying, don't pull that trigger, because if you do, we're two witnesses watching this, you will be chayav misa, capital offense. He's got to be warned, right? There's a ruling when it comes to Eidim Zomim, and there's no prior warning. If they come to court, we don't tell them before. Now, if you're not telling the truth, then you'll get malchus. That rule does not apply to Eidim Zomim, which means, Rashi just mentions, it's learned from a Gemara in Kesubos, but every other example would need a warning to the individual prior to the Avera taking place. So any example, eating something not kosher, you'd say, for it to be a mazid and then subsequently need and the punishment to be carried out, it would have to be a warning from people saying, don't do this, this is forbidden. And if you do so, this is the punishment, because otherwise the person actually may not know. So there's got to be a warning before, but not for witnesses coming into a court. If they come to a courtroom, you don't give them a warning beforehand. They come to court. So what the Gemara is suggesting, going back to the rule that we mentioned before that Peter showed us from binyan of, a binyan of meant we've got a rule here, and from that rule, or something that particularly happens in letter A, we're saying, therefore, the similar will happen anywhere else. So, Eidim Zomim is not an action, and it gets malchus without an action. Wow. From there, the Gemara wanted to learn the same anywhere else. That's a binyan of, and that's one of the rules of the Torah. Says the Gemara, no, it's exceptional. It's particularly strict because with Eidim Zomim, they can get their punishment, and it could be malchus, and there's no warning before. Whereas elsewhere, we always find that the individual is warned before they do any avera. So the point here is we're saying that, yes, it's not an action, but there's no warning. Maybe we'll put on mute. Thank you. But because there's no warning, maybe Eidim Zomim has a particular strict rule about it. You with me? So, yeah, I can see a couple of hands there. Thank you. So again, we wanted to learn from A to B. We're saying you can't do that because we found now a particular strict ruling about A, which means you can't learn necessarily B from A. You with me? Benjamin. Mute, you're on mute.
So, okay. Yeah, I have a feeling that Malcolm put his hand up first. Let me just answer. I understand that because the Torah doesn't stipulate a warning. I'm just curious. Presumably in practice, when the Eidim come to the Beis Din, presumably they're grilled and they're tested, and presumably they are actually made aware. Because an aid, I could be anyone could turn up and say I'm an aid.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely, no. The warning we're talking about here is a warning prior saying if you're wrong, this is what the punishment you will get. That is not necessary for Eidim. That's the point we're making. Yeah, of course they're grilled.
Make sure the aid understands
they're grilled to make sure they're telling as much as we can.
And warned, presumably they're sort of educated. You wouldn't, because you'd if wouldn't it? If you allow somebody to come and talk rubbish to the Beis Din.
Oh, well, yeah, of course you're going to be checking the Eidim to make sure they're, as I say, truthful individuals. And yeah, a particular standing or whatever. And you're going to check to as much as you can that what they're saying actually sounds true. You will one against the other if they're two witnesses. To ensure that's what, but there won't be this warning that they're normal. A warning meaning if you are not telling the truth, you will get malchus. You don't have to have that warning prior to them giving the testimony. Yes, you will test them and check as much as possible, but because that rule doesn't apply, we're now saying it's a fault in the learning from A to B. A must be exceptional. It's got an exceptional rule about it. Because it's got something exceptional, don't learn to other examples which may not be exceptional in that way. That's what we're saying. And it's quite an important principle throughout. Whenever we have this rule of binyan of learning from A, as we said before, otherwise the Torah will be that much larger if it had to mention rules everywhere. So it has principles here, and we're saying, if we find other examples, we will say it's the same as A, unless you say no, A is exceptional. Well, now we've said it is exceptional. We found an exceptional rule. Malcolm.
Okay, so yes, hello. I just wanted to say I understand the principle of this exceptionality. I'm just wondering, just occurred to me that whether one could actually explain why it is exceptional. And one thing that occurred to me was that the Edim Zomim they won't be warned, but if they really are deliberately falsifying, they would have some foreknowledge of what the punishment would be for the person that they're trying to frame, as it were.
Yes, you're
and
quite
therefore
right.
they've almost sort of warned themselves. I mean, they
Yes.
would be sort of aware of it.
You're quite right.
So that's why they don't need to be warned.
Oh, now you mentioned a good point. You said that you're assuming that they would know. Now the point about warning is to be certain. This is certainty you want, and generally, when any avera, there must be a warning, because otherwise the individuals could always say, "Oh, I didn't realize murder's not permitted." I mean, okay, that's a bizarre case maybe, but any avera, a person could always say, "I don't know. Maybe I'm not that knowledgeable about all the mitzvahs in the Torah. I didn't realize about chometz or whatever. I didn't quite realize that." So what we're saying is, no, there's got to be a warning prior to anything. But what we're saying here is, you may well be right and say that most people would know that. They'd know what the repercussions are going to be. That may well be true, but it's not compulsory warning prior to their speaking. That's the point.
But is it always malicious? Is it always that they are malicious, or can it be an unwittingly? No, I mean, it's the Edim Zomim. Is it that they are? Is the definition?
I think I'm taking that back, because what was said. Do you remember the case that Edim Zomim was very? In a normal case, when two witnesses come along and say, "We saw a loan take place," they might have made a mistake. Instead of being 50,000, it was really only £10,000 a loan. They slipped up, and that's what you're saying. It wasn't malicious. They really thought the loan was for whatever. But if in this case, if you remember, Edim Zomim, it comes up in the next page, actually, next to Talmud, that Edim Zomim is where they say, "We saw this take place, whatever, in Bournemouth." And then two other people come and say, "At that very moment that you saw this taking place, you were with us in Manchester." So it's very clear there that it's not, when you say malicious. You're right. It could be that they've heard that this took place, and they're trying to the evidence they're giving is based on somebody telling them that this really happened, and that's why it's not that malicious, maybe, but it certainly is not true. They were not there. That's what we're saying.
Okay. I just
so
seen Mervin's got a hand up.
yes, he
Apparently.
has, moving around to the yellow hand of Mervin up in the top corner. Yes,
Thank you, Malcolm, for assisting me in this.
we can hear you.
Technology. So I was going to, yeah.
It's not very clear. It's not clear, but we can hear you.
I'm just saying, I think it's a logistic thing. It's not really that it's an exceptional, because if somebody's about to commit a murder or somebody's about to, I don't know, be claimed or something like that, then you see an action which they can warn them about, but you don't know their agents are in until another pair come along later and say, Emmanuel, you said. So the logistics of actually giving a warning prior to the MISA just don't exist, because it's retrospective. You see what I'm saying? You don't have a
yeah.
action.
That is part of it. Actually, that's a very valid point, and that may be the reason why you can't give them. But the bottom line is they are still punished. You're right. That maybe logistics mean it's not going to be possible. In fact, that's Rush is alluding to that when he mentions when are you meant to give the warning, and long Gemara then Ksubas. But the bottom line is, in the end, they do not receive a warning, and they are punished. So even that, so you could have said because they don't get a warning, they can't be punished. But nevertheless, the Torah is saying that without a warning, they are punished. So the bottom line is that it's in some ways it's stricter. Yeah. Hello?
Mervin, can I just interject? We can't hear you because your sound is muffled. Please, will you sign in again? Please, will you sign out and sign in again?
Will that help, you think?
Yes.
I'll do this on the laptop. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right. Oh, you can hear you a bit.
Do a break to the.
All right.
Okay, fine. Carry on.
All right. No. Come back with your point. So anyway, the Gemara. Sorry, what was your point?
You can't learn from it because a warning couldn't have been given. That's my point. There wasn't practicalities of giving a warning.
But all we're saying is this: so we all agreed it's exceptional.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, you can't give the warning, whether you say it's impractical or whatever. We've agreed it's impractical. So what we're saying, but it's exceptional. We've agreed it's impractical. So something's going on here. It's coming back on me. Ooh.
It's twice. He's in twice. You're on
try
twice. You're two Mervins.
Two Mervins there.
I've just silenced one.
Oh, he's not. Are you still in Switzerland? Still on the. Can't hear you.
You're muted. You're muted. Mervin, you're muted.
Okay, all right, fine. I think we're back in action. It's okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Back in action. Yes. Okay.
So
all we're saying is, for this rule to be able to use opinion of, you mustn't find something exceptional about the case. We found something exceptional, and therefore you can't learn as a general rule. That's all we're saying. So the Gemara then tries something else.
By the way, is binyan the same as a mamotzinu? Just to clarify.
Yeah, yes, that's generally.
Okay.
How do we find? Yeah, mamotzinu. It's called a binyan. Yeah. Says the Gemara. We go back to, if you remember, defaming a young lady. If you remember the second wide line now. So the Gemara says, okay. So let's prove it now from Motzi Shemra. Simon, second wide line of Daf Daled Amud Beis. Sorry, it's a tricky piece here. We're trying to learn a general rule that actions according to Rabbi, no. A negative precept without an action can still mean that there could be malchus if a person falls foul of that action. And we'll see how this works out in a minute. Says the Gemara, let's learn from Motzi Shemra. Do you remember the case about the Motzi Shemra? This was about the individual who defames his wife and says, actually, it's between betrothal and marriage, if you remember, or setting up a home together. He says she has been unfaithful between that time, and therefore she actually would be chayav misa if it's true. But it turns out it's not true what he said, and therefore what happens to him is a motzi shemra. And a motzi shemra, before that one, if you remember, the apostle says v'yisru oso. He receives malchus. So again, it's speech. Speech means that it's not an action, not, as I say, a full action. And nevertheless, in the case of Motzi Shemra, he's saying she's unfaithful. May not actually be chayav misa, that's not the point. The point is he's saying that she was unfaithful, and therefore he receives malchus. So there's another example of no action, but receiving malchus if it turns out what he's saying is not true. So we looked beforehand at Eidim Zomimim. We're not talking about Eidim Zomimim here. We're talking about someone who defames his wife, betrothed to her, and he receives malchus for that. Again, no action. Says the Gemara, have I gone too far down? No, I haven't. Was saying, you told me, and that's we learned last week. Let's just follow that through. Yes, remember we had this case last week of this, we mentioned this Motzi Shemra. What we're saying is this: we found something exceptional about no warning. It's interesting. Motzi Shemra is warned prior to him saying this about his wife. He is warned, he does receive a warning. So, you told me that the reason why Eidim Zomim are exceptional is because they don't receive a warning. Motzi Shemra does receive a warning and does get malchus. So what we're saying here is that that exceptional point about not giving a warning is not exceptional at all, because I've got other examples. That's, remember, last week we ended up with two examples here, one from last week and one from this week, and it's tricky. This week we've got Eidim Zomimim. Last week we were looking at Motzi Shemra. Now, if you remember, there was something exceptional about Motzi Shemra, because not only is there a malchus, there's also a financial payment he has to make. Right? So, again, Eidim Zomimim, no warning. Motzi Shemra has a double punishment. It's malchus plus financial payment. We're trying to learn today, we tried to learn from Eidim Zomimim to say, I found an example, no action, it's all speech, and it gets malchus. We said, but it's got something exceptional about it. What we're saying, though, that's not an exceptional point for Eidim Zomim. Don't worry about that exception, because I'm going to give you another example where that exceptional, you see, the argument was, it's because it's exceptional, there's no warning, that's why you get malchus even though there's no action. But it's not true, because in the case of Motzi Shemra, where there is a warning, there's still Malchus, even though there's no action. So don't tell me the fact that there's no warning beforehand makes it exceptional. It's not exceptional, because I've got an example where that exceptional rule doesn't apply because a warning is given, and nevertheless, there's still going to be Malchus, even though there's no action. Are you with me? We wanted to learn from A. We said A is exceptional. We're saying, no, just 1 minute. I've got another example, B, that doesn't have that exceptional rule that A had, and nevertheless, it still gets Malchus, and there's no action. And the way the Gemara is going to follow, I'll just say it out, let's say, without looking into the Gemara first, the Gemara is going to say, as we learned last week, we wanted to learn from B, which was Motzi Shemra. Motzi Shemra is no action, it's just speech. He's defaming his wife with speech, and he gets Malchus. And we wanted to say from there, you can learn everywhere. Whenever there's no action, you can get Malchus. Last week, we said, no. It's got something exceptional about it. What's exceptional? With Motzi Shemra, there's double punishment. There's a financial punishment plus the Malchus. This week, we're saying we've now found something else called Eidim Zomamim, but it's got something exceptional. What the Gemara is now going to say, it's not exceptional, because I've got another case B without that exceptional rule that A had, and he still gets Malchus. You with me? Look at the Gemara, please. I know this is a bit tricky. Says the Gemara, Mala Eidim Zomim Shekain ain't first wide line, second wide line of the Gemara, ain't Sarichim Hasra. Says the Gemara, but Motzi Shemra Yochiach. Motzi Shemra will prove that exceptional point we suggested made it exceptional is not exceptional at all. Because even if that exception was not there, as it isn't in the case of Motzi Shemra, there's still Malchus. And the Gemara then says, we can go round in a circle. What does that mean? V'choza hadin lo re'izer kri'izer v'lo re'izer kri'izer. This is not the same. That we're looking at two cases here. Again, Motzi Shemra has something exceptional about it, or so we thought it was exceptional, and that's it's got two punishments. So you can't learn anywhere else from something exceptional. The Gemara is now saying, no, but I've got Eidim Zomamim, which doesn't have two punishments, and nevertheless still gets Malchus. Then you go the other way around. I've got Eidim Zomamim, it doesn't get a warning. Must be an exceptional rule. Says Gemara, no, because I've got now the case of Motzi Shemra, where there is a warning and nevertheless still gets Malchus. I hope I'm not losing people totally here. It goes like this. We've got Eidim Zomamim and Motzi Shemra. Eidim Zomamim has something we thought was exceptional until we find B and find that exceptional is not exceptional at all because it doesn't apply in B and nevertheless it still gets Malchus. Then we look at B. We said we wanted to learn from B everywhere. And we said, no, you can't because B is exceptional. What's exceptional about it? It's got two punishments. So maybe that's why you get Malchus even though there's no action because it's so severe. It's got two punishments. Says the Gemara, no, because I've got Eidim Zomamim, which is not two punishments, and nevertheless still gets Malchus for no action. So each time the exceptional point we're finding in each, we're dismantling by saying we found that the other example doesn't have that exception and shows it's not exceptional. It's like saying, Eidim Zomamim is exceptional, it's got the letter I in it. Well, the Gemara is just saying, well, that's totally irrelevant. It's not anything exceptional. Just because it's got an I in, why should that play any part? We're saying the same thing here. That we've argued and said you don't give a warning, but we found other cases where there is a warning and nevertheless there's still going to be Malchus for no action. You with me? Or have I lost people here? So the Gemara is saying the following: Hatzad hashover shebohen, as both Eidim Zomamim and Motzi Shemra, they have an exception, but it's knocked out and said it's not exceptional because I found another case where that exception is not there and nevertheless it still applies, even though there's no action Malchus is given. What we are trying to prove is everywhere where there's no action, Malchus can be given. The Gemara started off this week saying Edim Zomimim. Then the Gemara said, no, it's exceptional because there's no warning given. You can see it's strict. Says the Gemara, no, that's not important. The fact, no, because I found an example where you do have to give a warning. So it shows it's not exceptional. A warning is given, and nevertheless, Malchus is administered with no action, because there's no action in Motzi Shemra. Then we looked at the other way around. We said, well, let's learn from Motzi Shemra. It's everywhere. Just like in the case of Motzi Shemra, there's no word said, and nevertheless, Malchus is given. The Gemara said, no, it's exceptional. There are two punishments. The Gemara then says, no, two punishments is not something which you can call exceptional. Why? Because I've got another example, Edim Zomer, there are not two punishments there, and they get Malchus. You with me? All we're trying to do is dismantle what we considered to be a chumrah. You with me? We've got A and B. And continue the Gemara here. What is the third wide line? Hatzad hashove shebohen. What is something which is similar? It's like the lowest common multiple or highest common factor, if you see what I mean. What is one factor of both, which is there in both occasions? It's a lav she'ein bo maisa v'lokin olav. Av kol lav she'ein bo maisa lokin olav. Says the Gemara the following. We want to learn from A. We said, oh, we found something exceptional about it. The Gemara said, no, but B doesn't have that exception. Okay, what about B? Well, B is exceptional. Double punishments. No, that is not considered and something exceptional. Why? Because A does not have that, and still you get Malchus. Says the Gemara, well, let's learn from both. And this is what Peter showed before. This is called learning from two places, where we have something in A, but not applicable to B. We've got something specific in B, but not in A. So each of those you can just remove. It shows it's not exceptional. So remove that. What is the common factor between A and B? They are activities. Well, no, there's no action. There's Malchus with no action. So what we're saying, we're learning from both of these examples that a lav with no action, you do get Malchus. This is the way Rabbi Yehuda is learning. One final piece, says the Gemara, but what about the following? I appreciate there's something, we thought there was something exceptional in A, but it didn't apply in B. We thought there was something exceptional in B, but didn't apply in A. Says the Gemara, why don't you say the following? But you see, if we find something common to both A and B, something exceptional about A and B, then we'll have to say you can't learn it elsewhere. Says Gemara, I found something exceptional, if you like. Malat sada shove. What is something which is equal in both? Shekein kanas. They are both. What does it mean, kanas? A kanas means, as we said before, it's just a fine. You're not making amends, yeah? You're not making, as we said before, the difference between a knas and momon. Momon is a monetary payment as compensation. These two are not compensation. So, as we said there, sheken kanas, it's just a fine. Now, a fine means it's a chiddush, a fine. A fine means there's sometimes punishments which, as I say, in particular here, they're a person is receiving something which is not compensation. If someone breaks a window, you pay up compensation. This case of Edim Zomimim, and indeed it sounds like particularly we were looking at, let's look at Eidim Zom in particular. We mentioned this last week. According to this, the suggestion is, it's got something exceptional. You can't learn from Eidim Zomimim because Eidim Zomimim is a fine. From fines, you can't learn anything about a fine. A fine is something very specific. It's a chiddush, not to be learned elsewhere. Says the Gemara, Holo Kashia, Rabbi Yehuda lo Sova lo Rabbi Akiva. If you remember, there was a machlokas about this. I think, Benjamin, you mentioned this last week. Some hold that no, this is because it's what you intended the other individual to get. It rebounds back on you. That is not classified as the standard fine. That really is compensation for what you wanted the other individual to receive. So therefore, it's good. It's not a fine. That's good now. So now we've got two examples and we're going to learn from them. Says the Gemara, one final piece. Hell or no? I've now found something between A and B. I tell you what's exceptional about A and B. They've both got something exceptional. They might be different, but they've both got something exceptional, which means you can't learn elsewhere because they've both got something exceptional. Now, it's true. Each exceptional point we knocked out with the A knocked out B and B knocked out A. That's exactly what Gemara says. Rabbi Yehuda tzad chomer lo parach. You can't ask if you've got something exceptional in A, something exceptional in B, and it's not the same exceptional piece, exceptional rule, then each one, if you like, knocks out the other. You with me? So we have A and B. If A and B would have both had the same exceptional severity, whatever it was, then you would have said, oh, well, that's different to everything else in the Torah. But it's not. They're different. They're different points. And each time the other example knocked out the first example, if you see what I mean. A had something exceptional which B didn't have. B had something exceptional what A didn't have. So what we're saying, because they're both not the same exceptional rule, you cannot learn from each other. So what we're saying here, don't classify these two, therefore, as out of range and not to be learnt from. It does fit in. So the bottom line is, it goes back to Peter's rule that we saw with Peter's rule, we'll call it, you see. Got yourself a name now. The third rule, which was a binyan of Mishnei Kesuvim. You're learning from these two that what are we learning from these two? We're learning from these two that even in an example of a lav she'ein bo maisa, you could get malchus from it. Okay, that is the view and the way Rabbi Yehuda learned his ruling. The Gemara now goes back to the Mishnah itself. Taking us right back, some people actually put some extra words in here. If you remember, there was a machlokas in the previous Mishnah. And then not the previous Mishnah, this Mishnah that we're looking at. Do you remember? If this goes back to the crucial point here, which was, if somebody gives testimony, Eidim Zomimim. So we said, according to the Chachomim, they get one punishment, and we said, Risho Achas, and the punishment they get, Eidim Zomim, whatever they intended the other individual to get. If you remember, Rab Meir said you get two punishments because there are two psukim. Remember? And the Mishnah reckoned them out. Lo sarne v'reacho eid shoker. That's one. And then v'asisem lo kasher zomam la'asos la'achiv. Okay? So Rab Meir has two psukim to tell us that in the case of Eidim Zomimim, you will always fallen foul of lo sarne v'reacho eid shoker, a false witness, malchus for that. And then you've got the rule, v'asisem lo kasher zomam la'asos la'achiv. Okay? So that was the machlokus we saw in the Mishnah. We were always following the view of the Chachomim. We hadn't seen until we saw the Mishnah. We'd always followed the view of the Chachomim, which means there was one punishment. But there are two psukim. With me? I'm now gone back to the Mishnah, the machlokas between Rab Meir and the Chachomim. The Chachomim say there's one punishment. Rab Meir said there's another posuk. Says the Gemara, back to our Gemara, 4 lines up, gentlemen. V'Rabbanon, okay. The Rabbanon said you only get one punishment. Why? But there's another posuk. Don't be a false witness. What do they do with that posuk? Says the Gemara, V'Rabbanon, high, 3 lines up. Lo sanev eid shoker my dorshe bay. What do they use and learn from that posuk? You with me? Rab Meir sounds quite logical. I've got a posuk, lo sanev eid shoker. I've got another posuk. Sounds like 2 psukim, fallen foul of 2 psukim. What do the Chachomim do with that extra posuk? Says the Gemara, Hahu mi boile, they need it la azhara. Now, not to be confused with hasra, here we're talking about azhara. The Torah normally gives a warning, don't do something, rather than just telling you, for example, there's going to be lo sirtach, you've got a warning, don't murder, and then you have a punishment. What happens if someone does? Similarly, what we're saying here is it's an azhara for edim zomimim. There's a warning. Have a look at Rashi, 6 lines up, La azhara la'edim zomim, la onshon bedin hazoma, to warn them about this ruling of edim zomimim. V'lo litan la'onish malchus, you can never give malchus, elo shelo hoyo lo la'onshin bedin hazoma, elim kein hizir. There's got to be a warning in the Torah, don't do something. You cannot give malchus, and in examples we've seen malchus in edim zomimim, without having a warning in the Torah, don't do something. If you do not have the warning prior to that, then you cannot follow through and give the punishment. So the Gemara is saying here, I needed lo sanev eid shoker, which means don't be a false witness in any way possible, including edim zomimim, of course, that's also a false witness. So therefore, in the case of edim zomimim, it's the warning, the Torah's warning, don't be an eid zomim, and masisem lo kasher zomam is what actually happens if they are edim zomim. You with me? So we've got 2 psukim. Lo sanev eid shoker is don't be a false witness. Simlo tells me what happens if they are a false witness. Now we go back to Rab Meir then. Rab Meir, you told us Lo sanev eid shoker is not being used as the warning. It's actually coming to tell me we get malchus. Where's your warning? For Rab Meir, 2 lines up, azhara la'edim zomimim minole. Where does he learn the warning? If he's using that posuk, not for a warning, but to say you get malchus, you with me? He's got to have another posuk. Omer Rabbi Yirmiyah, he learns this from another posuk. And this posuk is the following. Can I call on you, Peter, please? Deuteronomy 19:19. And then we'll go to 19:20. So we need 19:19, Devarim 19:19. Should remember 19 squared, shouldn't we? 19:19. We have to scroll down. Excellent. That's it. 19 is the one we want. Now look at the posuk which follows that. V'hanishorim, the other people, the remaining people, it means other people, Yishmu should listen. Ve'yiro and have fear. be afraid, he says here. Don't do such evil acts in your midst. That follows on from the Eidim Zomimim. Okay? Yishmu v'yira'u v'lo yosifu od, and don't do it again. This should not happen again. Like happened in Posuk 19 squared, is v'asisem lo kasher zomam lases la'ochiv. Yeah? Okay. Now back to the Gemara, please, and we'll just finish with this. Says the Gemara, where's the warning? Malcolm's got a question there.
Sorry, just on your translation of that verse, I was just looking. I mean, I was looking at the translation, but
yes,
is it an imperative or is it actually descriptive? Because it's saying it will not, there will not be, it will not continue.
Oh, a good one. Hanishorim Yishmu, they should. Well, you've touched on a very good point coming up in the Gemara, actually.
Oh, okay.
What we're learning, according to Rav Meir, is an imperative. Good one. Have a look at the Gemara, please. The question was, where's the warning telling people don't behave in this way? Omalei Rabbi Yirmiyah, last line of the Gemara, Nafkele, he learns it out. This is Rav Meir from the Posuk, V'hanishorim Yishma'u v'yira'u. They should hear and be afraid, and don't continue to do such activities. That's their warning. Don't be an Eid Zomein. So they're using that posuk for an Eid Zomein, a warning. Then they've got two psukim. One posuk is Lo Sana V'recho Eid Shoker, one punishment. V'asisem lo kasher zomam l'asiyach, two punishments. You with me? Benjamin's looking all right?
No, maybe next time I'm going to ask you to explain the difference between Hasra and Azhora.
Right. Hasra,
we're talking now about...
no, that's a good point. I'll explain it now because I know people won't be able to sleep.
No, because I'm going to say, I think you've said Azhora means basically that it's written twice in the Torah.
No, your Azhora means there's got to be a warning in the Torah.
In the Torah.
Don't do something.
And Hasra means that people need to tell these people, oh, don't kill this man.
Yes. We were talking earlier about Hasra. We are now discussing Azhora, something different under the same.
But just understand how this works, because I mean, just to a simple person like me,
all right.
How does it help me that it's written twice in the Torah? If it says
no.
Why do I need to have an Azhora from the Torah? Whereas for these Eidim Zomimim, it would help them if they're in the Beis Din. They could be told, just be careful. If you frame someone, you're going to get the same punishment. Yeah, that would, I can understand. But how does it help the Azhora, the fact it's written twice in the Torah?
No, it's not that it's written twice. No, there's one Azhora in the Torah. There are two psukim, according to Rav Meir telling us, there are two punishments. One because the person has not kept to the sound of Re'ach Ha'id Shoker. And then there's another rule which says, V'asisem lo kasher zomam l'asas la'ochiv.
The punishment.
The punishments. But there's one, what the Torah always has to tell us, don't do something, because somebody may say, I don't mind getting the punishment. The Torah doesn't. The Torah hasn't told me I don't have to, mustn't do it. It's telling me what the punishment.
We do that with parking fines. We sometimes say, okay, I'll park there, pay the fine.
What we're saying here, it's not like a parking. For a good example, it's not like a parking fine.
Right.
The Torah says the Torah does not want you to do it.
Right.
So that's why there needs to be a warning.
Okay.
The warning is there telling person don't do it, and then you've got the punishment. Yeah. So it's so what we're saying here, according to Rav Meir, there is the warning in the Torah from that word that Malcolm said. It's imperative. Listen, be afraid, don't do it. What about the Rabbanon then? What are the if you remember, the Rabbanon said the warning came from Lo Sanev Re'ach Ha'id Shoker. This posuk is unnecessary. What's that telling me? It's not needed for a warning. And this is where Malcolm comes in. V'rabbonon hahumi boile, next page. Lahachrozo, an announcement. This is not an imperative telling people how to behave. We know they're going to behave. It says there's a posuk, lo sana b'reachoi choker. This is an announcement. Look at the top Rashi. To omrinim b'sanhedrin be'elohein anechnokim abor tzrichim hachrozo. There's an announcement, a proclamation, announcement going out. After these people are punished in this way, but bezin tzrichim bezin lahachris, to announce. If it was if the person was killed, Poloni bebezin alavera plonis. So it's really so that people should hear and take note. So that's the point, Malcolm. You see, either you learn this imperative is telling a person how don't do this, or it's telling people as an announcement, a proclamation. Just finish off the next line, please. I saw you, Malcolm. But well, what about Rab Meir, though? Is there no proclamation according to Rab Meir? Rab Meir says, yes, there is. It's a very long posuk. So half of it comes to tell me the warning, don't do it. The other half, mi yishma'u v'yira'u nafka. Where it says listen, what's this listening doing? Says Rashi, mi yishma'u v'yira'u azhora. So the azhara comes from lo yosifu, don't do it again. This subject, not you. People should not act in this way. That's the warning. But the first part, which says listen and be scared, that's the announcement. You with me? Whereas the Chachomim say that whole posuk is talking about the proclamation. They don't split it in this way that Rav Meir did. So, as concluding, as we get to that Mishnah, we've finished up with the following. We've got a machlokes in the Mishnah between Rav Meir and the Chachomim as to whether there are two punishments. If a person falls foul of Losana B'reach Eid Shoker, and also about Asisem Lo Kasher Zomam Lasus La'ochiv, and earlier on it said this shouldn't happen. So according to Rav Meir, there are two punishments. According to Chachamim, no, there's only one. It's Asisem Lo Kasher Zomam Lasus La'ochiv, because Losana B'reach Eid Shoker is the warning. With me? And then we end up with this other posuk by Nishorim Yishmu V'Yirou. According to Rab Meir, that's the warning. And the second half is a proclamation, if you like, or the announcement that goes out. This is what happened. The following received their punishment for being Eidim Zomimim. And according to the Chachomim, that's one long posuk telling us about this announcement that goes out. But as we know, we pass like the Chachomim. There is one punishment that's received. The punishment is Vasisem Lo Kasher Zomam Lasus La'ochiv, and that alone. And with that, we will. Malcolm, you had a question, or?
Well, yeah, it's a sort of I didn't quite understand because I thought the warning was if you do that, this will happen to you. I thought that the warning has to contain the warning hint of the
you're going back to Benjamin's question. Benjamin's point was a human warning that people have to give. There's another psukim about that. Carries what you're saying. The warning in the Torah is just don't do this.
Because
elsewhere,
the implication
there'll be another posuk which will tell me what the punishment is. But there's got to be a warning telling me don't. Not when I say a warning, probably is the wrong thing. It's warning people, telling people don't do
imperative.
That's right. That's the imperative, and there's somewhere else telling you what the punishment will be. But without that, it's called an azhara. A person may think, well, I don't mind, as you say, getting the fine. I don't mind. I'll pick up the fine. I don't care. What we're saying is the Torah does not want you to park the car in that particular place. That's really what we're saying. And then there'll be a punishment. Okay. Yeah? You're happy with that? So the warning in the Torah is always don't do something.
So why does Meir have to? Why does he take it from the second verse? Why does he need to? He doesn't need to.
Yes,
I
he
mean,
does, because he's got the posel Losana Brecho Choker is not so much telling me a warning, it's saying that there you'll get Malchus for that. Losana Brecho Choker, his learning is where you get the Malchus from, but you need a warning from somewhere else. Don't do it. I know it says don't be a false witness, but he's not learning that as the warning. He's learning that's a posuk telling me what the punishment is. You often find when it says low, it means the punishment rather than don't do it. Well, I confused you.
but what is the punishment then?
According to a mayor, it's going to be Malchus. And I've got a warning here, don't do it. I've got another posuk which says don't do it. That lo san of Reach or Eid Shock is not just telling me don't do it. I already know that from this posuk here, you see. So that posuk is coming to tell me that I'm falling foul of another negative precept. It's called lo san of Reach or Eid Shock. Don't be a false witness. So I've been told don't be a false witness from this posuk here. It says v'lo yosifu, oh, don't do it. What do I have another posuk for? That other posuk is telling me it's not just another example of a warning. It's telling me that I'm going to get Malchus. You with me? I've got this. I've doubled up. I've got lo yosifu. Don't do this action, and I've got it twice. So the other action in the Torah is not telling in the Aseret, it's not telling me. Yes, it does say don't do it, but it's not just a repetition. It's telling me I'm going to get Malchus for it. You with me? So one posuk tells me the warning, the other one tells me I get the Malchus. Asi Simlo tells me it rebounds back on me. Okay. So with that, gentlemen, we will close. There was something else, but it'll take too long to go through, I'm afraid. Maybe next week I'll talk about that. I was going to talk, but it'll take far too long, about the most incredible, I mean, if you talk about incredible piece, about the number of letters in Megillas Esther, and the most incredible piece, but maybe I'll leave that for next week, although it's still the week of Purim, I suppose. There's 12,111 letters. Incredible. I mean, now it's not so incredible. You've got a computer. But this is Rab Weissmandl in one of the bunkers. There he was where was he in Europe during the war? And he came up with this, incredible mind. I suppose you have one of these minds. Warsaw? Rab Weissmandl?
I think so.
12,111 letters in Megillah Esther. So somebody queried it to him. Oh, I'll show you. I can't hold myself back now. The trouble is it's in Hebrew, but I will explain it to you. Let's just say a Kapitel Tilim first, and then I'll do this. I'll give me extra. I'll show you this. It's incredible. This person, how he could do this without a computer. It's just mind-blowing. But before, let's just sing or say Shiur Malus, and then Peter will show, we'll try and go through that very quickly. It's in Hebrew, and Peter, you can send it around afterwards if you like. Let's have a look first, Shiur Malus. Shiur Lamalus. So Einai El Horim Me'ayin Yobo Ezri Me'im Adonai
Shemayim v'yoretz Yitem raglecho al yanun shomerech
Hinei lo yonun
yanun
v'lo yishon
shomer Yisrael
Adonai
shomerecho
Adonai
Yachim
Yoimom
Hashem lo yakecho v'yoreach b'laylo Adonai Yishmerecho, B'Korah Yishmo et nafshecho. Adonai Yishmo zechehu v'oecho, me'ato
Yad
mi'ad
Olam. Achenu kol beis Yisrael hanesulim matzorah v'shivyo. Hoim dim bein ba'yom u'bein ba'yabosha. Mokim yarachim alehem v'yotzim mitzorah lirvocha. Me'afel el'oiro mishibud ligula. Hashta ba'agolo v'zman koriv v'noima omein. She'er b'suras tovus. Simon, you know a bit about Rabbi Weissmandel?
A little bit. I mean, he was the guy who negotiated with the Germans for the release of the Jews, wasn't he?
I don't know much about that. Rabbi Weissmandel, maybe. I didn't know he was that. I just.
Didn't he survive the war until the 1950s or not?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. If that's the same. So
Yeah.
it's either him or his family. Peter will show you something incredible. Now it's in Hebrew. I'll try and translate it, if you can show it. There we are. As we scroll down, you can see it said in the first line, Rab Chaim Michael Do Weissmandel, if that was what his name was. If you follow it with your arrow, we are this article was written, but it follows. It's a very nice article. He was very active in what's called Milo Bediluk Shover, which means you have the same word or same letter with gaps in the Torah. But all this without computers, unbelievable. It builds up various things. Now, what he was looking at, Rabbi Weissmandel, Nisayon Laharot Ketzad Sefer Min Tanach, and this time I've gone to the second paragraph. Megillas Esther. Is there any remez in the Torah of Megillas Esther? So Rabbi Weissmandel said that if you look how many letters there are in the whole Torah, there in the whole of Megillas Esther, 12,111. That itself is quite extraordinary. So he said the following. So in his Sefer, he writes that link, but now follow it down, and he's used a computer to show how this works. There's a posuk. Here's this posuk. Can you do two things at once? Of course you can, Peter. Can you show us, please, posuk Bereshis Daled Yud Daled? Keep that there. We'll use it. Let's go back to Bereshis Daled Yud Daled. Yes. So we go back to Tanakh. Bereshis Daled Yud Daled. Daled Yud Daled is very interesting. It's the only time the word, now it's true, the actual vowels are different, but look in that posuk 14, you've got Esoser, which is also the same letters as Esther. Yeah? Now, what he did in this computer, now, right, we don't need that anymore, but let's go back to this other one. Don't lose it, we might come back to it. Let's just put it away somewhere. Okay, let's have this one blown up a bit. Make it large if you can. Oh, good. Yes. There's your word Esoser, top line. You got it? He's got all the letters in this computer program next to each other. Okay? And what he's done, there's the word Esther. And he's gone back to that letter Me'al. Can you see the first top line, Me'al, that mem? And then he's counted, or the computer's counted, 12,111 letters later. And you have that Gimel. And then he's done another 12,111. He gets a Lamed. And then he's done the same thing again, and he gets a Tov, giving us Megillas Esther on top. Unbelievable. Now, Megillah Esther, the other side, was Homon or Agogi, descended from Amalek. Can you scroll down a bit further, please? Now look at this. This time, if I can call upon you now to go to the first time we've actually got Amalek in the Torah, it's in Bereshis Yud Daled Zayin, 14:7. You'll have to go. You'll have to. Oh, a long way to go. You just go back. All right. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's good. Yes. Well done there. 14:7. You got Amalek. Vayoshuvu vayovo el ein mishpot hi kodesh vayakov. It's called ho Amaleki. There's your word, ho Amaleki. What he's done in this computer program. Thank you. Let's go back to the work of this. Yes. There's Vayakus stay ho Amaleki. You got it, the ayin of Amaleki. And then the computer's counted 12,111 letters later, and you get a mem. And then the same thing again, you've got a lamed. And the same thing again, you get kuf from Amalek. And the word letters in between, that's amazing. I think what he says here in the Hebrew is he tried that same number, 12,111, and couldn't find it anywhere else, making up this word Amalek. And similarly, going back to Esther, having Megillas Esther in that way. He's got more here, but I mean, we can stop just there, which is quite amazing. So go back to people. Thank you very much, Peter. Just thought I'd share that with you. Quite amazing, the 12,111, and how he came up with that. I can't believe it. It's just phenomenal, which the computer can. Something that, you know, you need a certain type of head to be able to do all of that. Quite phenomenal. Which just show that Megillas Esther, very powerful indeed. It's not just a banging of Megillas Esther. It's the messages from it, that even though things are hidden, and of course the name of Hashem, there's so many places there that you can actually find the Yud and the Hey, etc. of Hashem. Ehyeh, Asher Ehyeh comes in the Megillah as well, all hidden. Things are hidden. We have no idea what's going on. We have no idea the plans. But yeah, we're believers, and keep davening, keep the good actions, good activities going. And we look forward, Emetz Hashem, to Besuras Tovas. Have a very good Purim, a meaningful Purim. Tomorrow,
he tried to save, according to Wikipedia, he tried to save.
Oh, yeah. He tried to save.
He
tried to save Jews. That's what he tried to do.
Yeah, right. It says he was also a scholar, but interesting pointer, an expert at deciphering ancient manuscripts, like what you're talking about. In order to carry out his research, he traveled to the Bodleian Library. This was 1939. It is related that he was treated with great respect by the chief librarian of the Bodleian after an episode when he correctly identified the author of a manuscript that had been misattributed to the library's scholars. Yeah, he was received by the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Foreign Office to try and release people from Slovakia. That's where he was.
And it was his successful.
And let me just see. When I was getting 60 rabbis in Bergenland, he flew to England. He was received by the Bishop. He succeeded in obtaining entry visas to England for the 60 rabbis. Yes, he did. That's what he did. The Bratislava Working Group. So he was. So I think the person who negotiated was.
What's his first name? Michael David or what?
Dov Weismantel, D-O-V.
Michael Dov Weismantel. Michael Dov Weismantel.
Yeah, that's the one. And yeah, amazing. With all of that, he was still. How anybody can work out their 12,111 letters and then see what else is going on is just.
But if you want to read about him, you should read this book by Yehuda Bauer, Jews for Sale. He's in there as well.
All right. Okay. Oh, good. Thank you very much, everybody. So yeah, with that thought, and as I say, we know nothing. about.
He also escaped. The final thing, he escaped from the sealed train on the way to Auschwitz by opening a hole with a saw that he had secreted in a loaf of bread. You know, he's an unusual sort of guy.
Wow.
He jumped from the moving train and made his way to Bratislava. Anyway.
Wow.
That's
Unusual is an understatement of it.
Yeah, yes.
Say that again.
That's really interesting, Mervyn. I think I'm going to tell Bear. Should be interested.
Yeah, it's just in Wikipedia. In Sefer HaKodesh Wikipedia. Okay.
That's right. Well then, Rabbi. Yes. Okay, with that, gentlemen.
Wikipedia. Okay. Next week.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. So next week, all being well. And don't forget the number 12111. All the best.
Yes.
Good night.
Thank you, Norman.
Oh, shit, there's no
Good Purim to one and all.